Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sikandar and I talk about watches. Today I've got a watch for experienced collectors, those who are new to watches, and everyone in between. And if you can spare $30, I certainly have a watch for you. Introducing the Casio World Time, or sometimes better known as the Casio Royale. How did it get the nickname Casio Royale? That's because this Casio closely resembles a Seiko watch that Roger Moore wore in the 1980s James Bond film. Let's get into the technical specs that make this watch special. So first things first, this is a large watch. I measured a case diameter of 39mm without the buttons, 44.5mm with the buttons, a lug-to-lug of just over 45mm, and a thickness of 13mm. This is way bigger than I usually like, but for the functionality and price, I'm willing to compromise on my size preferences. The material of the model I have here is resin on the case and strap. Frankly, I like my Casios in resin because it keeps the price down, it's lightweight, comfortable, easy to clean, and it's durable. This watch plus band weighs just 39 grams. This same model does come in steel and other colors, but I like mine simple. This watch is funny to me because they print a lot of the notable specs right onto the watch. The watch comes with a 10-year battery. I've had this one for a little over 3 years and it's still running strong. It comes with 100 meters of water resistance. I live in LA and a lot of times this is my beach watch. It has never let me down in the ocean. It's got an illuminator backlight, which is an LED backlight, and yes, it's very good, especially when you compare it to something like the F91W. This entire dial lights up. The display is made up of 4 different segments. At the top left, you get an analog readout of the home time zone set on the watch. This is useful if you want to display 2 different time zones at the same time. At the top right, you get an indicator for your alarm and daytime chime. In the middle, you'll see a world map, which highlights the time zone that the main display is showing. And at the bottom, you get the main display, where we have a day and date, including the month as well, AM, PM indicator, as well as daylight savings time. This watch is an alarm clock, allowing you to set up to 5 daily alarms. It also has a countdown timer and a stopwatch, functions that are generally standard with Casio digital watches. Inside is a quartz movement, which Casio reports to be accurate to plus or minus 30 seconds per month, which I have found to be correct in my ownership of this watch. It's very accurate. You get an acrylic crystal on this watch, no frills but no issues either. The thing that really sets this watch apart is the world time functionality. The watch is able to quick store 4 time zones, your local time, and 3 others. I find this remarkably useful, especially if I'm traveling internationally. I get to keep local time, Pacific time for where I live, and my immediate family lives in 2 other time zones, so I can easily track all of that in one watch. This Casio allows you to choose between 31 different time zones for those 4 slots. They basically have a time zone for each major city, and as someone who doesn't own a GMT, this serves as my GMT, except it's capable of so much more. You get all of that functionality for $30, and sometimes less. I'm 6 feet tall, 175 pounds, and I have a 6.5-inch wrist. You can see here how this watch wears on me. Frankly, I think it looks really good. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing about my wrinkly sweatshirt. I've sung the World Time's praises, but what are some of the downsides? Earlier in this video, I called this a large watch. I should caveat that by saying my sweet spot is in the 36 to 38mm space when it comes to watches. Therefore, this watch is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, though I understand that that's not the case for everybody. Additionally, this watch prints the button functions on the actual watch itself. It's still an issue for me though. I have to Google every time I need to do something on the watch, and I think if I wore this watch more as an everyday watch, that wouldn't necessarily be so much of an issue because I would be used to doing things on the watch, but it's an issue for me. I use this World Time for a couple different use cases. I mentioned this earlier. One, I wear it to the beach. So I do have a Casio F91W that I wear in the gym, but this has additional water resistance, whereas the F91W does not. So this is the watch that I wear to the beach. I also travel with this watch. So I have taken this watch all around Hawaii and Japan, and it allows me to track all the time zones that are relevant to my life. I actually double wrist with this watch a lot of times. I mean, you got two wrists, why not use them both? I still like and enjoy wearing my mechanical pieces, so oftentimes I'll wear the World Time on my right wrist and one of my mechanical pieces on my left wrist, and I enjoy wearing two watches at the same time sometimes. In the watch community, you get a lot of hate on quartz watches, and I think it's really important to understand that the hate is not necessarily on the technology itself, but rather the value that some of these quartz watches bring to the table. So for example, if you're taking a $250 Daniel Wellington or movement watch, those are not necessarily good values. In fact, I'd argue those are bad values when it comes to quartz watches. You can find those types of watches on things like AliExpress for way cheaper. This Casio for $30, while it is a quartz watch, the value that it brings with the functionality for those $30 far outpunches something like a Daniel Wellington or a movement. So when it comes to quartz watches, put your money in something like Casio World Timer and not the movement or Daniel Wellington. There are very few watches that are worth the money when you think about the functionality they actually provide. For example, I have a time-only Rolex, which only tells me the time. And if you think about it, my phone tells me the time more accurately than that Rolex could ever do. And that's the only function that watch really provides me. So does it provide me value based on that functionality alone? Even as a watch collector, I'd have to admit, probably not. But this Casio shows me the time in 4 different time zones. It's got a countdown timer, a stopwatch, 5 daily alarms. There's a lot of functionality that you get for that $30. I can also take it swimming, and so this watch provides a lot of functionality for me that my phone does not necessarily provide. And so in that way, this watch is actually more effective than my phone in a way that a lot of other watches are not in this hobby. And that's why I think everyone should own one. So we're gonna wrap it up there, guys. If you liked what you saw, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing, comment your thoughts down below on if you would like to pick up one of these Casio World Times. And until next time, thank you.